These little houses were in far better shape than the anonymous flats and tacky, prefabricated houses that were supposed to replace them. Beside him, he was aware that Mickey shivered, then glanced sideways to see if Martin had noticed and might get the wrong idea. Mickey wore a dark woolly hat pulled down over his ears and a black padded jacket and black jeans. His outfit made his face look pale in the yellow streetlights that cast odd checkerboard patterns on the ground. The Residents' Association had paid someone to fit heavy cages around the lighting units. Sure enough, it had cut down on the effects of vandalism, but now the local council refused to change any failed bulbs, something about increased unit costs if engineers had to remove the cages first. Sometimes, Martin thought, you just couldn't win. It was yet another job left to be taken on by the Residents' Association. Tonight, Mickey was carrying the radio. He touched the earpiece instinctively as the voice broke through his concentration. "They're in position," he told Martin, keeping his voice low in a street where every sound seemed magnified by the emptiness. "What's our ETA?" 3 minutes, Martin told him, watching as Mickey activated his throat mic and passed the message on. "P says they have a sighting. Positive ID," he said. His eyes widened slightly. "Our tip-off said they're preparing the drugs. And about the kids, he says there's 2 of them already at the warehouse." Martin nodded. He quickened his pace. The dog, sensing the increased tension, pulled forward against the lead, and Martin noted Mickey's hand move surreptitiously to the pocket of his coat. He ignored it. Mickey wasn't the only member of the Residents' Association who carried. Martin tried not to know too much about that side of things. As a police officer, Martin knew he was walking enough of a tightrope as it was. At the end of the street was a railway bridge, long disused. Where the tracks had once run was now a footpath of sorts, muddy and overgrown. The Residents' Association was campaigning to have lights rigged along its length, but cash for the project was hard to find. There had been an experiment with CCTV a few years before, but the cameras were dead easy to avoid. Anyway, the control centre was so overloaded and far away that trouble would be long gone before anyone responded to the alert. As it was, the old railway track had become a kind of no-man's land, a rat run between the pitches held by the various gangs that claimed to own the Armitage estate and the surrounding projects. It marked the outer perimeter of the watch area cleared by the Residents' Association. The zero-tolerance zone that Martin and others like him policed every night of the week, keeping the world at bay. Or so they pretended to believe. Mickey pulled on a black ski mask and then led the way onto the bridge, scrambling up the bank. The dog almost dragged Martin in his wake, panting and choking against the lead. Silently, Martin pulled her back to heel, and the 3 of them moved together across the bridge and towards their agreed position overlooking the warehouse yard. Martin heard Mickey confirm that they were now in place and ready to move down. The other team of 2 men and 1 large dog was already positioned beside the front gate leading into the warehouse yard. Martin tried not to think how stupid this whole thing was. They had no intelligence on how many people there were in the building. Estimates varied between 3 and 6, and they had to assume that all were armed. Equally likely, they'd find themselves storming in on a group of kids using the semi-derelict place as a squat, or burst in on one of the pros entertaining a client she'd moved from her own patch. It wouldn't be the first time. The initial tip-off they'd been given had been vague, just that a large quantity of drugs, mostly ecstasy, was due to be moved that night, and that this time there was an extra complication, another type of merchandise to complete the order. But the details had been fuzzy, and the informant not one of the Residents' Association's regulars, and Martin knew from bitter experience that, had they passed it to the local police, it would have been graded no higher than a Code 3 and left at the bottom of a long list. The local force was undermanned as any in the city. The Residents' Association had agreed. This one was up to them. "Rizzy?" Mickey's voice disturbed his thoughts. He nodded, and they started off again. They crawled slowly, feet sliding on wet mud, forced to dig their fingers deep into the bank to keep some kind of purchase. Martin ticked off seconds in his mind, knowing that they weren't shifting fast enough. The thought kept to the back of his mind until now that this might well all be a setup, suddenly pushed to the fore. Instinct told him this was a bad move.